It's the love story that captivated the world for over 70 years. A teenage princess, a dashing naval officer with no money to his name, and a secret crush that became the longest royal marriage in British history. But behind the storybook romance of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip was a partnership forged under unimaginable pressure. It was a life of profound sacrifice and an unbreakable bond that would come to define an entire era. This is the story of how a secret teenage crush survived a world war, the immense weight of the crown, and the constant scrutiny of the public to become a true testament to enduring love. Their story is often painted as a perfect fairy tale. The reality? It was far more complex and even faced opposition from the highest levels of the British establishment. Prince Philip was considered by many to be, and I quote, entirely the wrong person to choose. They thought he was rough, uneducated, and dangerously modern. She was the heir to the most famous throne on earth, a picture of quiet diligence, and yet their union didn't just survive, it became the very foundation of stability for a nation in a rapidly changing world. This isn't just a love story. It's the story of how that love became the silent engine of the modern monarchy. They had technically been in the same room before, at a family wedding in 1934, but she was just 8 and he was 13. Neither of them remembered it. The real spark, the moment that ignited one of history's great romances, came 5 years later on a gray, drizzly day in July 1939. The world was on the brink of war. But for 13-year-old Princess Elizabeth, her world was about to change for a very different reason. She was visiting the Britannia Royal Naval College with her parents and sister when a sudden outbreak of mumps took the scheduled cadet guides out of commission. Stepping in to escort the princesses was a confident, athletic, and strikingly handsome 18-year-old cadet, Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark. From that moment on, Elizabeth was captivated. Her governess, Marion Crawford, later wrote that the young princess never took her eyes off him. Philip, full of youthful energy, started showing off. He entertained the princesses by jumping over the tennis nets again and again, a display of athletic skill that left Elizabeth completely mesmerized. Crawford, perhaps a little more skeptical, noted, "I thought he showed off a good deal." But Elizabeth saw only a dashing, fearless young man. Years later, in a rare handwritten letter, the Queen confirmed just how important this day was, writing, "The first time I remember meeting Philip was at the Royal Naval College, Dartmouth, in July 1939. I was 13 years of age and he was 18. As for Philip, his memory of the day was far more low-key. Well, we'd met at Dartmouth," he later told a biographer, "and as far as I was concerned, it was a very amusing experience. And that was that." But for the young princess, it was everything. Biographer Sir John Wheeler Bennett put it plainly, "This was the man with whom Princess Elizabeth had been in love from their first meeting." A seed was planted, but it would have to survive the long, dark years of a world war to have any chance of blooming. As World War II raged across Europe, the two were kept apart by continents and conflict, but they grew closer through the quiet intimacy of letters. Philip served with distinction in the Royal Navy, seeing action in the Mediterranean and the Pacific. His life was one of danger and duty on the high seas. Meanwhile, Elizabeth was coming of age within the sheltered walls of Windsor Castle, following his career with intense interest. Their friendship deepened with every letter they exchanged. Before long, a framed photograph of the handsome, bearded naval officer had a permanent spot on her bedside table. It's ironic, but the war that physically separated them was the very thing that allowed their connection to grow. Hidden from the prying eyes of the court and the press, the rare moments of leave brought them together. In 1943, Philip was invited to spend Christmas with the royal family at Windsor. During the holiday, the princess performed in a pantomime of Aladdin, and everyone there noted the obvious spark between the two. Her governess wrote that Elizabeth was animated in a way none of us had ever seen before. The depth of Philip's feelings, forged in the heat of war and the hope of a future with Elizabeth, was poured into his letters. After surviving the conflict, he wrote to her, saying, "To have been spared in the war and seen victory, to have been given the chance to rest and to readjust myself, to have fallen in love completely and unreservedly, makes all one's personal and even the world's troubles seem small and petty." He called her by her family nickname, Lilibet, a clear sign of their intimacy. The war was over, but for Philip and Elizabeth, a new battle was just beginning, the fight to be together. During a holiday at Balmoral Castle in the summer of 1946, Philip asked Elizabeth to marry him. She was just 20 years old, but she was completely certain. She said yes on the spot, without even checking with her parents. He proposed with a stunning 3-carat diamond ring that he had been deeply involved in creating, using stones from a tiara that belonged to his mother, Princess Alice, and commissioning the London jeweler Philip Antrobus Liliated to make the final piece. Her father, King George VI, however, wasn't so sure. While he liked Philip, he worried his daughter was too young and had simply fallen for the first man she'd ever been serious about. The king gave his permission, but on one condition. The formal engagement had to be kept secret until after her 21st birthday the following April. But this delay wasn't just about a father's protective instinct. Inside the royal household, there was what's been called fierce opposition to the match. To the old guard, Philip was totally unsuitable. He was a prince without a kingdom, having been exiled from Greece as a baby. He was broke, living on nothing but his naval officer's salary. Worse, in their eyes, he was foreign. His sisters had all married German noblemen with links to the Nazi Party, a fact that was deeply uncomfortable in post-war Britain. This was so sensitive that none of Philip's 3 surviving sisters were even invited to the wedding. Courtiers whispered that he was arrogant and ill-mannered. Biographer A.N. Wilson noted they found him entirely the wrong person to choose. To marry the future queen, Philip had to make huge sacrifices. He renounced his Greek and Danish royal titles. In March 1947, he became a naturalized British subject, giving up his princely status to become simply Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten. He gave up his identity, his name, and his heritage for a life with the woman he loved. The opposition was fierce, but Elizabeth's quiet, unshakable determination won out. Their engagement was finally announced on July 9, 1947, and a nation exhausted by war finally had something to celebrate. On the morning of November 20th, 1947, London was a city buzzing with excitement. For a nation still in the grip of post-war austerity, the wedding of Princess Elizabeth and the newly titled Duke of Edinburgh was a splash of brilliant color in a black and white world. It was a symbol of hope after years of hardship. The wedding itself was a masterpiece of what you might call constrained grandeur. Princess Elizabeth famously had to use ration coupons to buy the material for her wedding dress. When the public heard about this, hundreds of women across Britain sent their own coupons to the palace to help out, a touching gesture, though they all had to be returned. The gown, designed by Norman Hartnell, was an ivory silk masterpiece, decorated with 10,000 seed pearls and crystals. 2,000 guests filled Westminster Abbey, but the real audience was global. The ceremony was broadcast by BBC Radio to a staggering, estimated 200 million people around the world, a groundbreaking moment that brought the monarchy directly into people's homes like never before. After the ceremony, the newlyweds appeared on the balcony of Buckingham Palace to wave to the enormous cheering crowds below. It was a picture of fairy tale perfection. For their honeymoon, they traveled to the country home of Philip's uncle, Lord Mountbatten. But they weren't entirely alone. They smuggled Elizabeth's beloved corgi, Susan, along with them, hidden beneath a rug in their carriage. The public spectacle was over, and their private life together could officially begin. For a brief, almost magical period between 1949 and 1951, the couple got to experience something that would be denied to them for the rest of their lives: a normal life. Prince Philip was stationed in Malta as a Royal Navy officer, and Princess Elizabeth joined him, not as a future queen, but simply as a naval officer's wife. They lived at the Villa Guardamangia, the only place outside the UK the Queen ever called home. By all accounts, those days in Malta were some of the happiest of her life. Freed from the rigid rules of royal protocol, Elizabeth lived with a surprising amount of simplicity. She drove her own car to go shopping, handled cash for the first time, went to the local hairdresser, and hosted dinner parties for other service wives. Lady Pamela Hicks, one of her bridesmaids, recalled, "The Queen really loved living in Malta because she was able to lead a normal life. It was the only place that she was able to live the life of a naval officer's wife, just like all the other wives. It was a time of picnics, sunbathing, and dances. They could just be a young married couple. Their two young children, Prince Charles and Princess Anne, often stayed in the UK with their grandparents, allowing Elizabeth to fly back and forth, balancing her life as a mother with her new freedom as a wife in Malta. But this precious time was tragically cut short. By 1951, King George VI's health was failing. That July, Philip had to take indefinite leave from the Navy to be by Elizabeth's side as her public duties mounted. The carefree days in the sun were over. The long shadow of the crown was falling across their lives, and it was about to change everything. The final irreversible blow to their private life came on February 6, 1952. The couple was in Kenya on a Commonwealth tour, standing in for the ailing king. It was there, in a remote treetop lodge, that Philip was given the news. King George VI had died in his sleep. The weight of that moment was immense. And it was his job, a devastating and life-altering one, to tell his wife that her father was gone, and that she was now queen. According to a private account, Philip, after hearing the news, covered his face with a newspaper and just sat in stunned silence for 5 minutes, trying to process the enormity of what had happened before he could go and tell Elizabeth. In that instant, their world turned upside down. At just 25 years old, Elizabeth was the monarch, and Philip, a man on track for a brilliant naval career, had to give it all up. His life's ambition was sacrificed for hers. From that day on, he would walk 2 paces behind her, a position he held for nearly 70 years. His new role as Prince Consort was undefined and deeply frustrating for a man of action, but he was determined to make it his own. He became a modernizing force in the palace, championing the controversial decision to televise the Queen's coronation in 1953, against the wishes of Winston Churchill and others who feared it would strip the monarchy of its mystique. At that very coronation, as the world watched, he knelt before his wife. Placing his hands between hers, he made a solemn vow, "I, Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, do become your liege man of life and limb, and of earthly worship, and faith and truth I will bear unto you, to live and die, against all manner of folks, so help me God." It was a promise he kept for the rest of his life. For more than 70 years, the marriage of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip was the anchor of the British monarchy. It was a complex partnership, a delicate balance of public service and private affection. While Philip had no official role in the Constitution, his influence was huge. He was, in the Queen's own unforgettable words, her strength and stay. She made that famous tribute on their 50th wedding anniversary in 1997, a rare public glimpse into her private feelings. "He is someone who doesn't take easily to compliments," she said, "but he has, quite simply, been my strength and stay all these years, and I, and his whole family, and this and many other countries, owe him a debt greater than he would ever claim or we shall ever know." Philip, in his own speech, offered a more practical but equally telling take on their long marriage. "I think the main lesson that we have learned is that tolerance is the one essential ingredient of any happy marriage," he said. "You can take it from me that the Queen has the quality of tolerance in abundance." Behind the scenes, he was the undisputed head of the family. He gave her the blunt, unvarnished advice that no one else dared to. His famously irreverent sense of humor was a release valve from the immense pressures of her job. He was her rock, the one person in the world she could trust completely. And beyond being her consort, Philip carved out a remarkable legacy of his own, becoming a patron or president of over 780 organizations and founding the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, a youth program that has helped millions of young people across 144 nations. The partnership between Elizabeth and Philip is a story with so many layers. What aspect of their 7-decade marriage do you find most fascinating? Was it the sacrifice, the sense of duty, or the enduring romance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love uncovering the real stories behind history's most iconic figures, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. In August 2017, at the age of 96, Prince Philip retired from public life. He had completed an incredible 22,219 solo engagements since 1952. His life of service was finally done. He and the Queen spent their final years together, a partnership that had lasted an amazing 73 years. When Prince Philip died in April 2021, just shy of his 100th birthday, the world witnessed the final, heartbreaking chapter of their love story. The image of the Queen, sitting all alone at his funeral due to pandemic restrictions, became a stark symbol of her profound loss. She had lost the man who had been by her side since she was 13 years old. After he passed, she lovingly recalled his mischievous, inquiring twinkle, saying it was as bright at the end as when I first set eyes on him. The epic love affair of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip was so much more than a simple fairy tale. It was a testament to unwavering devotion, a masterclass in partnership, and a shared lifetime dedicated to duty, an unbreakable bond that truly defined an era.